The Holy Gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ according to Luke. Now all the tax collectors and sinners were coming near to listen to him, and the Pharisees and the scribes were grumbling and saying, "This fellow welcomes sinners and eats with them." So he told them this parable. There was a man who had 2 sons. The younger of them said to his father, "Father, give me the share of the property that will belong to me." And so he divided his property between them. A few days later, the younger son gathered all he had and traveled to a distant country, and there he squandered his property in dissolute living. When he had spent everything, a severe famine took place throughout that country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to one of the citizens of that country, who sent him to his fields to feed the pigs. He would gladly have filled himself with the pods that the pigs were eating, and no one gave him anything. But when he came to himself, he said, "How many of my father's hired hands have bread enough and to spare? But here I am dying of hunger. I will get up and go to my father, and I will say to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me like one of your hired hands.' So he set off and went to his father. But while he was still far off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion. He ran and put his arms around him and kissed him. Then the son said to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son.' But the father said to his slaves, 'Quickly bring out a robe, the best one, and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet, and get the fatted calf and kill it. And let us eat and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found.' And they began to celebrate. Now his elder son was in the field, and when he came and approached the house, he heard music and dancing. He called one of the slaves and asked what was going on. He replied, 'Your brother has come, and your father has killed the fatted calf, because he has got him back safe and sound.' Then he became angry and refused to go in. His father came out and began to plead with him. But he answered his father, 'Listen, for all these years I have been working like a slave for you, and I have never disobeyed your command. Yet you have never given me even a young goat, so that I might celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours came back, who has devoured your property with prostitutes, you killed the fatted calf for him.' Then the father said to him, 'Son, you are always with me, and all that is mine is yours. But we had to celebrate and rejoice, because this brother of yours was dead and has come to life. He was lost and has been found.'" The Gospel of the Lord. Today's parable of the prodigal son is one of 3 stories Jesus tells after the scribes and the Pharisees take him to task for eating with sinners. Instead of arguing with them, Jesus tells them the 3 stories. One is about a shepherd who left 99 sheep to fend for themselves while he went after the one stray. Another is about a woman who turned her entire home upside down in order to find one lost coin. And then today's story, the one we just heard, about a compassionate father who deals graciously with his 2 sons. The stories address the Pharisees' concern that Jesus is condoning sin by the company he keeps. But what these stories make clear is that God is far too busy rejoicing over found sheep, found coins, and found children to worry about what they did while they were lost. In some ways, the story about the prodigal son is not really about 3 separate people, but a story about the ways in which each one of us is each one of them. Sometimes capable of expressing abundant love, sometimes squandering all that we have and returning and seeking forgiveness. Sometimes the faithful, even self-righteous, even bitter follower. It is a story about the ways in which we want more, but we settle for less. Less love, less joy, less life. It is also a story about our need for God. By the way, how are you doing with your Lenten disciplines? I know someone who gave up eating broccoli and smoking for Lent. The trouble is, he doesn't smoke and he hates broccoli. The truth is, if we choose spiritual disciplines that can be successfully completed for 40 days, we probably needed to choose some other spiritual discipline. If nothing else, Lent puts us in touch, not with our strengths, but with our weaknesses. And it puts us in touch with the ways that we can be tempted. You may remember the story of Robert Hansen, the FBI agent who pleaded guilty to 15 counts of espionage and conspiracy some years back. He passed on classified information to the Soviets, and his actions became the subject of the movie Breach. It has been called the worst security violation in the history of the FBI. Hansen was tempted by more money and more respect. He said he took $1.4 million in cash and diamonds because the other agents at the Bureau treated him like an outsider and overlooked his brilliance. Similarly, in another movie made some years back called Tortilla Heaven, the leading character, Isidore, wants more and more money, more recognition, and more fame, and everything balloons out of control after the face of Jesus appears on one of Isidore's handmade tortillas. Tortilla Heaven is the name of his restaurant, and it is known as the best in town. His tortillas are scrumptious, his enchiladas divine, but Isidore has never made a dime off of them because the town he lives in has a population size of 73 people. There isn't even a paved road to get there. Yet one Sunday morning, while he is preparing for the after-church lunch crowd, a miracle occurs, and once word of the Jesus tortilla erupts, minor miracles start popping up all over the place. Tourists and worshipers start arriving from all across the country, and it isn't long before Isidore begins to recognize the money-making potential of all of this. He starts charging admission. He's talking franchises and Jesus tortilla merchandise. Everybody in this town wants more. The priest wants more statues for the church. The sheriff wants a helicopter and a Hummer. The mayor wants a municipal golf course. The shopkeeper, a mini-mart. And as greed takes hold, everything falls apart. It isn't long before Isidore's son hates him. His wife kicks him out of their home. His sister sues him. His best friend threatens to kill him. When Isidore seeks forgiveness, even the priest refuses to speak to him. He is driven out into the wilderness, crying out to God, only to be followed by the townspeople who are shouting, "More, more, more! Give me more!" Wanting more is natural. It's normal, right? The younger brother in today's parable wants more in the worst way. He is so hungry to see the world that he wishes his own father dead, if not literally, at least symbolically, by asking him to settle his estate early and to give him his share. But as we heard, he no sooner got it than he took it and squandered everything until the day that he came to himself. And then he decides to go back home, even if it meant living as a servant and not as a son. He came home to live off what was left of his father's inheritance. In other words, by then, to live off his older brother's inheritance. No sooner did his father see him coming down the road than the elder brother's fatted calf is killed and the celebration is on. No tough love here. No extra conditions, not even a confession. Before the prodigal son even says a word, the father plants a kiss on his cheek, puts a ring on his finger, wraps a clean robe around him, and gives him new sandals to wear. The elder son isn't even there. He's still out working in the fields, and yet the party has already started. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and now is found. All without the older brother even being present. The music and the dancing bring him home from the fields, and his anger feels righteous, justifiable. We ask, what happened to penance? What about facing the consequences of your actions? What about reaping what you sow? What kind of world would this be if we all made a practice of rewarding sinners while the God-fearing folks are still out in the fields? What about those of us who work hard to keep our jobs and to stay in our relationships and to take care of our health and to pay our dues, but never seem to get any credit for it? What do we have to do to get a party? I don't know about you, but I can understand the older brother's anger at his father. For all these years I have been working like a slave for you, and I have never disobeyed your command. Yet you have never given me even a young goat. Not a fatted calf, mind you, not even a young goat, so that I might celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours came back, not my brother, this son of yours came back, you killed the fatted calf for him. Some years ago, a friend of mine named Brian discovered that he had an older half-brother. The news came out of the blue one day, along with a Christmas party invitation. It was as much a surprise for Brian's father as it was for Brian, that an old flame had given birth to their son, had named him Dwight, and had kept him a secret for 30-something years. On her deathbed, she revealed who Dwight's father was. And now, Dwight wanted to meet the rest of his family, but my friend Brian wasn't having it. He can't just show up here after all these years, he said to me. He didn't have to live through my father's stupid discipline, his idiotic rules, and his ridiculous chores. Why should he reap any of the benefits now, he said. He just wants to claim an inheritance, and he doesn't deserve it. Well, amazingly enough, Brian did agree to go to the Christmas party. And as life would have it, the party was not intended to welcome Dwight into Brian's family. Just the opposite. It was designed to welcome Brian into Dwight's family. Dwight was happily married and he wanted to share his happiness with the brother he just learned he had. He and his wife and 2 children didn't expect anything from Brian at all. Instead, they offered him gifts. And the only thing Dwight wanted from Brian was to meet him, to get to know him, to be a brother to him. Life is complicated. Relationships are difficult, and parables are confusing. We can't really blame the older brother for being angry. He wants what we all want, to be loved as we deserve. He wants to be loved because he has earned it. He has stayed put. He has followed orders. He has done the right thing. Of course, his father does love him, but not for any of that, any more than he loves the younger brother for what he has done. He does not love either of them according to what they deserve. He just loves them, more because of who he is than who they are. And the elder son in the parable, like my friend Brian, just simply cannot stand it. He cannot stand a love that transcends right and wrong, a love that throws homecoming parties for prodigal sinners and expects the hard-working righteous to rejoice. He cannot stand it. And so he stands outside his father's house and outside his father's love, refusing the invitation to come inside. We had to celebrate and rejoice because this brother of yours was dead and has come to life. He was lost and has been found. His father tells him, they are family. They belong to one another, and a party for one is a party for all. It is an invitation back into relationship, an invitation to recognize his own lostness and found-ness, just as this and every Lenten season is an invitation to us to discover our own lostness and found-ness. Today's story ends with the older brother standing out in the yard with his father, listening as the party goes on inside. It is up to each one of us to finish the story, to choose, to decide whether we will stand outside all alone being right, or if we will go inside to take our place at the table full of reckless and righteous sinners, saints and scoundrels, brothers and sisters, united only by our relationship to one loving Father who refuses to give us the love we deserve, but cannot be prevented from giving us the love we need. Amen.